At Modern Athlete, we like to prioritize power, strength, hypertrophy, as well as conditioning within every one of our training programs. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite exercises and all of the progressions as well as regressions to that movement. And that movement is going to be the kneeling jump. So we'll get into it today. So this is step one for my progression for kneeling jumps. So what I'm going to do is my toes are flat on the ground. I have a band anchored to my pull-up bar, so I just choked the band on the top of the pull-up bar. It's wrapped around my shoulders in the back, so I can still use a counter movement, which would be my arms. And I'm going to dip into my heels and then forcefully explode up onto my feet. So I'm going to dip down and then stick the landing. And then I'm going to repeat that, one more rep. Toes are flat. Some people coach being on your toes. My issue with that, a lot of times athletes will kind of just stand up as opposed to forcefully getting the hips through. So my toes are flat and I have to violently get into hip extension. So I'm down and then I stick the landing. So that's progression one for my kneeling jump series. Next progression for the kneeling jump series, I've taken away the band assistance. Now I'm just gonna go into the same motion, but now with unassisted. So I'm just gonna dip into my heels, forcefully explode up and stick the landing. So I'm jumping and stick. Starting up tall, I'm dipping down into my heels and then I'm forcefully getting into hip extension. So I'm using my arms and then sticking the landing. So force you to produce force as well as absorb force on the landing. So that is progression two. Next progression, I'm adding an exterior load, which in this case is going to be a med ball. And it makes it more difficult because I don't have a counter movement. I can't use my arms. So I'm just going to hug the med ball. Same motion as the previous two, but now I'm going to not have the ability to use my arms. I'm going to dip into my heels and stick the landing. So dip and stick. All right. So that is progression three. All right. So just adding an exterior load. Either hug a med ball, you can hug a plate, something like that, but that is progression three. Next progression I'm going to show you is put a dowel on your back, just like you're back squatting. Once again, you're not going to have the ability to use a counter movement of your arms, which makes it more challenging. So you really have to depend on hip extension here. So I'm going to do the same motion as the previous. So I'm dipping down and stick the landing. All right, so that is progression four for my kneeling jump series. So to recap the four progressions I showed you. So we had the band assisted kneeling jump with the band attached to the rack with a counter movement. Then we went into a regular kneeling jump with a counter movement. Then we went weighted kneeling jump with the external load in front of the body. And then we went into a kneeling jump with the load distributed on the back of the shoulders with no counter movement. So as far as where we put this in program design, really depends on the goal of the cycle and the goal of the individual or the team. So you can use total body movements as like a potentiation, like just to fire up the nervous system prior to the lift. So this could go, you do your general warm up, then you do some kneeling jumps. So the system's turned on, so you're ready to train. You could do it as a main movement within the lift, either tier 1, 2, or 3 in the total body lift category. So it really depends on the goal of the training program, but I've done it in all aspects, whether it's pre-lift, during the lift, even post-lift. So you're really trying to be explosive in a fatigue state. But it's a low-level exercise, but I think it yields a lot of output, and I think it helps athletes. A lot of times I would program this to help athletes with their Olympic lifts. So if they weren't getting their hips through on a clean or a power clean or a snatch, I would introduce the kneeling jump so they knew what position they should be getting their hips in and really trying to be dynamic and explosive with their hips. So that's my go-to kneeling jump progression.